this was a issue that really involved bringing the labor movement into the 20th century. They had practices, and their programs were literally created to exclude, particularly the Building Trades Council, to exclude minorities. And it was commonplace. It was usual for a son and a grandson and a great-grandson to all be taken care of and brought up through into the Union. And through the apprentice program, there simply was no way for anyone else to break in. These were practices, and this was an ingrained problem in the labor union movement, and not one that I could play a significant role in. But we got the outcropping from it, of course, and some of the several instances of violence that occurred as Tyree and some of the other persons in his group, very loose organization, were attempting to correct these injustices. And there were a couple of guys involved who were just thugs. They didn't represent Tyree at all, and Tyree didn't represent them, but they attached themselves to the movement. And that was a problem. That was a problem for them and a problem for us in law enforcement in the city. One of them wound up, I can tell you an interesting story about that time and that era. I was up at a place called the Checkmate Tavern in the central area, where Sonny Booker, who was a black guy who was very involved in trying to bring the whites and the blacks together in discourse. And it was a healthy thing. And he asked me to come up there one night, Sunday night. They had a regular group that met, and it grew and until it was really quite large. People would just come up and what we call today rapping about the problems and what we can do about them. And I had a relief driver on the city limousine, policeman driver, who apparently had gone to sleep while I was in there, in the car, because the next morning I got a telephone call, again on that special phone, from the police chief, who advised me that he needed to discuss something with me. And it turns out that that apparently while this relief driver had been asleep, or at least inattentive, an explosive object had been attached to the bottom of the car, which they discovered the next morning in the police garage. And the person who put it there, we found out, again through some activities that certainly would not be condoned today, who did it. And he was one of those guys who was attached himself to those construction era protests. He wound up, and he left town immediately. It didn't go off because he was a bad workman, and his solder wasn't good.